When most of us visit the Welsh seaside, the greatest physical exertion we'll make is lying on a sunbed, eating an ice cream, taking a dip in the water. But we're back in North Wales for a very special triathlon that's an altogether higher level of physical effort. Welcome to the Sandman. Well, I'm with Tim Lloyd, who's the race director of Sandman Triathlon, and he's going to take me through this brilliant race. Now, Tim, it's the second time we've been in Wales. We were just over the mountains back in May for Sandman, which was a fantastic race, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were really chuffed with the way that Sandman went. It was really well received by everybody that took part, and it was fantastic. But September on Anglesey is very different to May in Llanberis.
We were in Lake Padden, which was lovely and calm, and actually just looking out of the sea here today, it's looking pretty choppy, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges that the competitors will face is the sea. And the waves can get quite big and it makes the swim very, very difficult. But that's what we're trying to create here. We're trying to create events which are tough, which are challenging, which are different from what people are used to.
Now, when the athletes exit the water, they've kind of got to run up a sand dune, and it's out on a 60-kilometre bike ride, which is fairly straightforward in terms of the hills, but it is rolling, isn't it?
Anglesey is deceivingly hilly. People think it's flat, but it undulates the whole time, so the 60k bike ride is actually quite tough.
And the 10-kilometre run, I mean, it's really tough, isn't it? Running on sand probably is one of the toughest surfaces that you can really run on, isn't it? And the athletes are going to feel that.
Probably 10 kilometres on the sand is more like 20 kilometres on the tarmac.
I mean, it's hard enough running at the end of a kilometre swim and a 60-kilometre bike ride, but this is going to be really tough for the athletes, isn't it?
It is tough, but at this point of the race, when they're so close to the finish, it's just really rewarding to be running along here. It's such a beautiful place.
Well, Tim, transition's filling up and it's not long before the race starts, so let's join your commentator, Patrick Winterton.
Welcome to the second ever Anglesey Sandman, and Tim Lloyd is absolutely right. They've created something a little different here. 500 athletes have decided to brave not just the distances, but the weather conditions that are being thrown at them today. There you see the map of the course, a swim of 750 instead of the 1,000 metres that were planned, and then a single loop 60-kilometre bike ride that will certainly test those who aren't well prepared. Well, once they've finished that, they set out on a 10-kilometre run, and over the sand dunes, windy conditions, some beautiful scenery, it has to be said. And it's going to take a pretty special athlete to win today. And here's a man who's certainly regarded as the favourite in the men's race, Peter Brook, the winner of the Sandman in 2011 and 2012, looking for his second win of the series. Well, we know he can go the distance, but how's he going to cope with the weather conditions today?
It's good Welsh weather, I think. It's a brilliant day. It's Anglesey, windy, wet. I mean, if it was anything less, I'd be a bit disappointed, really. We've had a really good season. It's the last kind of big hoo-ha race of the season for us, and I still don't think it's going to be easy. It's really bad weather, and there's a few people here who are gunning to try and take the win today. So, in really tough conditions, it actually completely levels the field. So it's not a given, it's just going to be really hard work out there, but try and remember to enjoy it. I've just got to get my head down, and everyone's going to get blown about. Everyone's going to get a little bit wet, I think. We're just debating on whether to wear base layers or not.
I would if I was you.
Peter Brook certainly approaching this with the right attitude, and here are a couple of his teammates from Chester Triathlon Club. On the left, Bethan Hughes, who won the Sandman this year, and her partner Chris Pryor, who's pretty much a triathlon novice, but he's an excellent runner. Now Arthur Connell, a local man, comes from Bangor. We saw him in the Sandman, and he's strong on the bike. There's no doubting that. He prefers the flat sections, but the question mark comes in the run. In the Sandman, he cramped up badly coming into the finish.
Your home favourite, so does that give you a little bit of added pressure?
Yeah, you kind of, after this season, you're kind of, everybody's out to beat you. That you're a bit of a scalp for others. I had to miss a race a couple of weeks ago because I wasn't well. So, but I feel quite strong today. So hopefully I'll retain my home favourite crown.
Arthur's one of those who has a realistic chance of winning today. Most of the other 500 are here to complete.
You train all year for these events. and you put in hours and hours and hours of training, and it's just a real buzz to find so many people from such a diverse section of people, and people come from all over the country to do it. It's just amazing.
Oh, I'm extremely nervous, honest.
I'll be happy when I finish, I think, today, because the weather's pretty horrific. But no, it should be good fun.
I've got my wetsuit underneath already.
Oh, I think the setting is gorgeous. The weather, not as gorgeous, but encouraging.
Well, the race conditions here today are far from ideal, but that certainly hasn't put off the 500 competitors about to take on the Sandman Challenge. Let's join your commentator, Patrick Winterton, for the race starts.
The start is just seconds away. Arthur Connell looking a little bit nervous, trying to eye up the competition. He wants a good start position. Now, just to remind you, the course on the water has been cut from 1,000 down to 750 metres, and the reasons are obvious. It's rough, it's windy, but they're still going out there, and this is going to be a very tough swim indeed. Some not quite so eager to get into the water, but those whose strongest leg is the swim have to take advantage, and the harder the conditions, the more advantage they should be able to take, and someone with the experience of Peter Brook should be just fine.
Cold, tough. It's just, I think the difficulty is breathing. When you shove your face in, take it out, and you get a wave slap you in the face, and you take a mouthful of salt water. It's really tough for everyone, and I think anyone who gets round today just needs a big pat on the back.
Well, slow progress for many in these wavy conditions. A lot of the swimmers reduced to breaststroke just to make sure that they don't get a lung full of water. The kayakers on hand are working extra hard to make sure that it stays safe. Different technique required and a lot of observation to make sure you go in the right direction. Well, a fantastic swim from Andrew Robbins, the first out of the water, the 23-year-old from Birmingham, just under 17 minutes. It's going to be around 16:26, 16:27 for his swim time. And in these conditions, that's very, very impressive. Now he's got to capitalise on that and take a good lead out into the bike. And it's a long transition here in Anglesey. Peter Brook looking eager. Second place in the men's out of the water. And that's a very impressive swim. Arthur Connell, the man from Bangor, which is just down the road, looking very light on his feet. He's had a good swim. Now the top women are not far behind the leading men out of the water, and that's increasingly becoming the case in triathlons. We've seen it time and time again. Through the sand dunes and into the transition area for Peter Brook. Remember, he's the winner of the Slate Man, 2 years on the trot, looking to win his second race in the series this year. And I believe he's also entered for the Snowman as well. There goes Arthur Connell. The wetsuit came off early to ease the run into the transition area. Not a bad tactic from Arthur Connell. He's obviously been thinking about this one, and he's a pretty good cyclist. Christian Pryor is also fairly handy on a bike, and his main opposition is away. Arthur Connell has got through T1 quicker than anyone else. Now Peter Brook finds himself chasing the man who he beat out of the water. Well, these two were always expected to have a good duel at the front of the field. Andrew Robbins in the yellow vest was the first out of the water. Here's Peter Brook, who I suspect will catch Robbins fairly sharpish on the bike ride. And as the leading men leave T1, in comes the first woman. This is Christina Mackay, a swimming time of 20:14. And Christian Pryor onto the bike. He lost some 35 seconds to Peter Brook, and Peter Brook is already pushing the pace on the road, and he's made his intentions fairly clear. 60 Ks on the bike. No drafting permitted. It's every man for himself. Straight past Robbins. Brook is the first into his stride, and well, is he going to decide this race very early on in the bike ride? We'll see. It's certainly going to be a good battle in the women's race. Christina Mackay taking a little extra time in transition to make sure that she stays warm. And just behind her, Jen Dixon, who won this event last year and will be looking to double up as the sprinters start. A much shorter course for the sprinters. Only 400 metres in the water, an 18-kilometre bike ride, followed by half the distance on the run, just 5 kilometres. But for many, that is far enough. And there are some very talented athletes in this field as well. And some brave ones. Rather them than me.
Swim in the washing machine.
Arthur Connell looking a little bit nervous out on the course. He's gone past Robbins, who is the first man out of the water. Peter Brook suffering from the cold. Well, there's no surprise.
How was that swim? Very rough. Oh, well, no brakes.
Well, that was a little bit dicey for Peter Brook. He'll certainly not make that mistake again. And Arthur Connell will have to be just a little bit wary of the road conditions.
I think that the course is going to be very hard today, even though there's no big climbs like in the Sandman. It's a cruel course on the bikes. There's a strong headwind today, and also the strong winds on the run.
Arthur Connell has started well, and he's making Peter Brook look like a slouch at this stage. Winding it up. This was always going to be the way. Connell's strength is on the flat. Peter Brook, the steeper it is, the better he is. And he's got plenty of hills to play with today. Christian Pryor won't mind the uphills either. He's a specialist runner, but my goodness, he looks good on the bike. And he's making it look very easy at this stage. The sprint distance have already completed their 18-kilometre bike ride and are now setting out on their final leg. But there's still a long, long way to go on the bikes for the full distance guys. Well, here's the battle up front. Connell, who went past Brook earlier on, gets a bit of his own medicine as Peter Brook turns it up on the first of the big climbs.
Getting blown all over the place.
Tricky conditions, certainly. Now, if it's head and head when they come into T2, I think most people would have their money on Peter Brook. Arthur Connell knows he has to try and get a 2-minute advantage by the time they get to that second transition. And have a look at this. Here comes Christian Pryor, and he's flying. It's hard to believe that this man is a novice as he makes Peter Brook look slow.
I only took up triathlon 3-4 weeks ago, so it's
3 or 4 months ago?
No, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was a runner before. Got injured in April, so started swimming and biking again.
And this really is quite a tough triathlon for your third ever triathlon.
I think so. The swim's going to be a bit of a challenge. I'm quite comfortable on the bike, and the run, I've been injured, so I'm just kind of taking each run as it comes. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to the challenge.
And Beth, your partner's racing, and she obviously comes into this race as the favourite, as the winner in Sandman. So are you going to get chicked, as they say in triathlon?
I hope not. Funnily enough, I came to watch Sandman because I was injured at the time, and that's what kind of inspired me to have a go at triathlon.
Well, it sets up a very interesting situation here on Anglesey, with the top 3 men only separated by a few seconds coming into T2. Peter Brook is in second place, some 35 seconds or so behind Arthur Connell, and then just behind him you saw Christian Pryor. So into T2. Now this is going to be painful because it's a very rough surface indeed, and down goes the bike. Well, that's a few of those valuable seconds thrown away, and he's worked extremely hard to get 30 seconds clear. Tiptoeing his way along towards his bike rack. I just hope his feet are so cold he can't feel the stones. Well, Tim Lloyd said he wasn't going to make this a comfortable race. He wants it to be different, and it's certainly been that all the way through the day. Peter Brook keeps the cycling shoes on, and that's certainly a good move, but he's still going to find himself in second place as he exits T2. Arthur Connell looking for victory on home sand, should we call it, here on Anglesey. He's put in the perfect race so far, but now he's going to have to dig very deep because he's got 2 excellent runners behind him. Peter Brook we know all about, having won the race in the Sandman earlier this year. He takes an extra 10 seconds or so in transition. So does Christian Pryor, and the reason they're putting socks on, because 50% of this race is on the sand. And you might have noticed that Arthur Connell didn't bother. Now, if Brooke and Pryor lose by 5 seconds, that could be a very decisive move indeed. But at the moment, it's Arthur Connell, the local, who leads the way. 30 seconds his margin, and he's got to hang on for 10,000 metres. Can he do it? Welcome back to the Anglesey Sandman Triathlon, which is into its final stages now. A 750-metre swim and a 60-kilometre bike ride have already been completed by the leading men. But they still have 10,000 metres to go on foot. And at the moment, it's the local man, Arthur Connell from Bangor, who leads the way. And the single track in the forest is an area where he should be able to take advantage of local knowledge. But he knows that he has two very strong runners behind him. Peter Brook, closely followed by Christian Pryor. Now, on the flat and on the tarmac, I think your money would be on Christian Pryor. Peter Brook loves it. The tougher it is, the better he seems to perform. And in blue, he's looking very strong. Right on his shoulder, though, is Christian Pryor, who's a smooth runner. Now, remember, this is only his third ever triathlon, so he's excelling himself. Peter Brook, though, certainly knows he's in for a fight, and he hasn't wasted any energy having a look at the course.
The run course is actually quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen it. I just know it goes around the forest. So I've not done any wrecking of the course. I don't really know where it goes. I hope I don't get lost. So, just, yeah, it's meant to be a really beautiful one, and I know this beach area is just outstanding for its beauty, so I think try and get round it, and if I'm up near the front, then that's all the better.
Well, I think Peter Brook just trying to take a little bit of pressure off himself. Arthur Connell up front is a man who does know this course. He raced here last year, and I think he knows he won't have too much time for looking at the local beauty. It will all be focusing on the race ahead.
The terrain is very slippery and it's difficult to get your grip, and also once you hit the top of the climb you're into the wind on the descent and it's difficult terrain, so it's almost like as if you don't have a descent, and then the last mile or half a mile is into the wind along the beach. So I don't know whether it's as nice as people think. I didn't find it very nice last year.
Well, he's still got the lead, Arthur Connell, but the two chasers are closing, as you can see, and I'm sure he can pretty much hear them behind him. This is a difficult time for the leader. His psychology has to change now, because very, very soon he's going to become a chaser rather than a leader, and that is so much harder. Still running fluently, no sign of the cramp that affected him on the Sandman at the beginning of the season. Christian Pryor with the orange top, very steady running position. Remember, he's been injured recently, and so he's got his fingers crossed that the injury holds out today and that he can put up a good challenge. Well, he's certainly done that so far. So with less than 5 kilometers to go, the leading three men side by side, and this is certainly the best finish we've seen to the Sandman so far. Will it be Pryor? Will it be Peter Brook? Or will Arthur Connell come back? I don't think so. Suddenly he slows as the two leaders go past. And now the leading women come into T2. Last year's winner, Jen Dixon's given herself a very good chance of defending her title. Celia Boothman is chasing her. She didn't like the look of the Sandman, thought that was too tough. Well, she's certainly making easy money of the Sandman so far. Just behind her, Bethan Hughes, the winner of the Sandman this year. But she's got work to do, over 2 minutes behind Jen Dixon. And the men's is starting to shape up with a burst coming in from Peter Brook. Well, he's got to keep this going all the way to the end. Just under 2 kilometers to go. He's made a break and he's got some 20-25 meters clear of Christian Pryor. But Pryor is not finished yet. They've got a long, tough section along the beach into the headwind. Anything could happen there. Nimble footing from Peter Brook and back onto the dunes. He just keeps that tempo going. It's not a long stride that Peter Brook has, and in these conditions I think that suits him well. Great tempo, great strength, and a great result for Peter Brook. He's going to wrap up victory here in the Sandman, and a fabulous run from Christian Pryor just behind him. So the Slate Man becomes the Sandman and only needs to win the Snowman to complete the set. A good day's work from him. Christian Pryor, who was inspired by the Slate Man, has performed an outstanding race here. We could see more of him next year. He has a great future in triathlon, an excellent swim and a brilliant ride. Arthur Connell, he was the first out onto the run, but he needed an extra minute's advantage if he was going to take the win. He has to settle for third. Peter Brook, though, is the winner.
It was just such a great race, and I think I knew it was going to be close. I knew Arthur was biking really well. I knew Chris was gunning for me. So, just an awesome event.
Christian Pryor had to work very hard on the bike to catch Peter Brook, and maybe too hard to give himself a chance on the run.
We got on the bike and I kind of knew I could catch Pete. We started off the run together and his run fitness was just too strong on the day. All the marshals were fantastic, they really were.
Arthur Connell, fifth in the Slate Man. He's gone 2 places better, and with a bit more training on the run, he could be a real threat.
I'm delighted with the third place. The swim was a bit hectic, but it was good fun on the way back because it was just like you were surfing in on the waves. I knew I'm a more powerful cyclist than Pete, but he's great on the climbs, But I thought, well, I'll go for a bit of no guts, no glory here. When I saw them behind me, I just thought, oh no, I've had it. But I was really pleased, yeah.
Celia Boothman has proved herself a very accomplished athlete by winning the women's event, overtaking Jen Dixon on the run. Bethan Hughes moving from third up into second, and another good run from the woman who won the Slate Man earlier this year. So there you have the top 5 in both the men and the women's. Brook, Pryor, Connell, the podium finishers in the men's event. A winning time of 2:35.39, a little slower than expected with the tough conditions today. And of course, Celia Boothman winning the women's event, 3:05.58.
That bit along the sand at the end was just really hard because the wind, my legs were just really feeling it by then. I'm really, really pleased. I've just set everything I wanted, really.
The sand sapping the strength out of Bethan Hughes' legs, who has to settle for second.
Good end to the season. The course was fantastic. The marshals were absolutely awesome. They're all so encouraging and, stood out there in the lashing rain. Can't have been much fun, but, it was a great event again.
And all credit to the athletes that have performed today. They've made this a truly remarkable event.
Even with the rain coming down, the marshals are great, competitors are great, and the spectators are cheering on, so why not come up here? It's a good race.
It was a real tough day, but a really enjoyable day. And the run was great around the forest, it's really scenic, so loved it, definitely be back next year.
Most of it's mental because you feel like giving up, especially on the sand. The sand dunes and that was very hard, but yeah, it was a challenge and I enjoyed it. Now I've finished, it feels good.
Well, if the Sandman Triathlon wasn't tough enough already, the weather conditions today have made it treacherous. That said, it certainly hasn't quashed the spirits of the hundreds of athletes that have crossed the finish line today. But for now, it's time for us to go and get warm. So it's goodbye from Sandman.